it was Aldous Huxley in his Brave New World who said well, I'm quoting a character in Brave New World called the Director. He's one of the elite. He's one of the enforcers of the system. And that, put the Director sententiously, that is the secret of happiness and virtue. Liking what you've got to do. All conditioning aims at making people like their inescapable social destiny. Now, in this society, we consider that we're actually free agents, and we live in a time when we can make all these choices and there's no constraints. Maybe, but maybe not. No, we may not be gestated in the test tube and biochemically programmed like the characters in Brave New World, but that doesn't mean that we're not under the influence of external factors that give us a certain view of ourselves, and a view of society, and a view of life, and a view of others. It doesn't mean that we actually have a spontaneous and free relationship to these questions of who are we anyway. It may be that we're very much also the products of social conditioning in a much more sophisticated and kind of spontaneous fashion than the characters in Aldous Huxley's novel. In an ant colony, interestingly enough, there's the queen, and then there are the worker ants. And the workers, and this is amazing to realize, genetically they're identical with the queen. The queen can ovulate, she's bigger, and she lives longer, but she's got the same genes as the worker ants. So what determines how those genes get triggered and expressed and activated has to do with the needs of the colony. So if you take the queen out of the colony, some of the worker ants will actually go to battle to become the queen. And the one that does then starts to ovulate. Their biology completely changes. And they'll be bigger and they'll live longer. So the biology of the queen is actually determined by the needs of the colony. Now, we're not as determined by group dynamics as ants are. And we're certainly genetically we're not identical like ants are, but this idea that we're sort of separate individuals fully in control of our destinies is a myth. And the great trauma psychiatrist Bessel van der Kolk said that as much as we're told that we're separate individuals, we actually barely exist as individuals. And this goes back very much to ancient spiritual teachings, the difference being that those spiritual teachings have been validated now by modern science. So the idea that everything influences everything else is not a new concept. The Buddha said 2,500 years ago, consider the interconnected co-arising of all phenomena. He said, think of all the conditions that go into making a leaf or a raindrop. So, a leaf has in it the sun, the photosynthesis, the play of light, and the interaction of light with the chemistry of the plant. The leaf contains the earth in terms of minerals, and of course the sky, the water that makes up the substance of the leaf. So in that leaf, in a certain sense, the whole universe is united. And very much the same is true of all creatures in this universe, including human beings. And it's in the nature of human beings that we did not develop as isolated, individual, competitive, aggressive beings. In fact, had we been that way, we never would have evolved. We evolved very much in small band hunter-gatherer groups. I'm talking about going back millions of years now. And even if we just look at the existence of our own species, which has been on Earth for, I think, something like 150, 200,000 years, we lived in those small band collaborative groupings if the existence of human beings as a species, our current species, Homo sapiens, can be expressed in 1 hour on a clock, then until 6 minutes ago, we lived out in nature in small band hunter-gatherer groups. Collaboratively, children were raised by the whole group, not by individuals, not by nuclearly isolated parents, single or a single couple in a distinct bungalow or apartment, but in a group setting. I'm not arguing for going back to those days. I'm just trying to understand what it is that activates human beings and what is it that makes us ill or what promotes our health. Now, if you wanted to study, you can say of an elephant, if you observe an elephant, you might say that the elephant is a solitary, lazy creature who basically lies around the whole day and every once in a while gets up to eat something and maybe walks around a little bit, back and forth, and then lies down again. And that'd be true of the elephant in the zoo. But it's not true of the elephant in its natural state. So to make assumptions about human beings and how we are and who we are in the context of modern society is in a way like making conclusions about an elephant in a zoo. Far divorced from our natural origins and following pathways and practices and holding beliefs and values that are very different under which we actually evolved as a species. Now, it's not that anybody wants to or would want to go back to hunter-gatherer days, but it is a matter of recognizing what maybe we've lost in the process. And the question is, can we use our ingenuity, our creativity, our incredible technical knowledge, our inventiveness for the benefit not just of relentless progress in a very narrow technological, economic sense, which progress, by the way, as we know in today's world, is leaving a lot of people behind. To look at figures in Britain about rising poverty, for example. But even if we assume that this continues progress, at what price? And is it possible to use the same ingenuity, creativity, and progress not to lose and leave behind those values that actually helped humans become humans, but to somehow reconcile modern living with those ancient values of connection and belonging